Hello, we're going to do a mathscast now on fractional indices. This is lesson 1 of 2. Right, so let's begin. The first thing you need to know about indices is anything to the power of 0 is 1. So for example, 6 to the power of 0, that equals 1. A to the power of 0 equals 1. Anything to the power of 0 equals 1. It could be written with little brackets. So, for example, it could be written 120 to the power of 0. That equals 1. So anything to the power of 0 equals 1. That's our first one we need to know. The second one we need to know is when it's to the power of 1. So, for example, 6 to the power of 1. Well, anything to the power of 1 stays the same. So 6 to the power of 1 is just 6. M to the power of 1 is just M. 120 to the power of 1 is just 120. So anything to the power of 1 just stays as it is. But what about when it's minus 1? So for example, you could have something like 7 to the power of minus 1. Well, 7 to the power of just 1 would equal 7. So 7 to the power of minus 1 is 1 over 7. The minus means 1 over. So, for example, a to the power of minus 1. Well, a to the power of 1 would just be a. So, a to the power of minus 1 would be 1 over a, because the minus means 1 over. Right, let's have another go. Sometimes you get questions with squared. So, for example, 3 squared. Well, we should know 3 squared means 3 times 3, which is 9. So squared means times itself. For example, 7 squared, that means 7 times 7, which is just 49. So we know what squared means. So what happens when we have something like 4 to the minus 2? Well, if it wasn't minus, if it was just 4 to the power of 2, 4 squared, the answer would be 16. So 4 to the minus 2 is 1 over 16. Same rule as we were talking about earlier. When it has a minus power, it just means 1 over. So 8 to the minus 2. Well, 8 squared is 8 times 8, which is 64. So 8 to the minus 2 would be 1 over 64. Right, so that's squared, done. Next one we're going to do, cubed. So, for example, we might get a question like 2 cubed. Well, we need to know that this means 2 times 2 times 2. Because the cubed means times together 3 times. Well, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Let's do another one. Say you had 5 cubed. Well, that would be 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. So that's what cubed means. But what about when it's a minus 3 as the power? So, for example, you might get 4 to the power of minus 3. Well, it's very easy to work out. We firstly work out what 4 cubed is. Well, 4 cubed is 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64. So 4 to the minus 3 would be 1 over 64, because that's what the minus means. Right, next one I'm going to go for today is the opposite of squared, square root. So say you had something like 9 to the power of a half. That means the square root of 9. So we need to find a number. When you times it by itself, you get 9. Well, the square root of 9 is 3. And the reason that is true is because 3 times 3 equals 9. Let's do another one. If we had, say, 36 to the power of half, the square root of 36, well, we need to know a number times itself gives us 36. Well, it's 6, because 6 times 6 equals 36. So again, we can do it with minuses as well. So say we had something like 81 to the power of minus a half, and we wanted to know the answer to that. Well, if we do 81 to the power of half first, without the minus, the answer to that is 9, because 9 times 9 equals 81. So 81 to the power of minus half will be 1 over 9, because the minus means 1 over. So there's another example of a minus 1 done. There's one more I'm going to teach you in this video, to the power of a third. So say, for example, you had 125 to the power of a third. Well, we're looking for a number times itself 3 times will give us 125. The answer to this one's 5. And the reason for that is because 5 times 5 times 5 equals 125. So this is the cube root. We're looking at that 3 there, really. That tells us it's got to be the cube root. Well, let's do another one. If you had, say, 8 to the power of a third, that would be 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Right, so it's the same with the minus powers. So if we had, say, 27 to the minus a third, so as I've been doing all the way through this, if we do 27 to the third, the answer's 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So let's just do with a minus. If we put the minus in front of the power, we get 1 over. So it's 1 over 3. Right, we've gone through all of our examples. So I have some practice questions for you to do. If you'd like to pause the video while you do these questions, because I'm about to reveal the answers. So pause the video now. And here are the answers. Make sure you have a look at Fractional Indices Part 2. Thank you.